Did you know that not all Australian Shepherds are actually born with tails? Yeah, it surprised me too at first. When most people think of Aussies, they picture these beautiful, energetic dogs running around without a tail. But the truth is, Australian Shepherds do have tails. Well, at least some of them. Here's the real story. About 1 in 5 Aussies are born with what's called a natural bobtail. That means their tail is naturally short, like super short, because of a mutation in their genes, specifically the T gene. So when people say, oh, Australian Shepherds don't have tails, what they're really seeing is this natural bobtail, which gives the illusion that there's no tail at all. Now, for the other 80% of Aussies that are born with a full-length tail, many of them go through a procedure called tail docking, and that's a whole story in itself. Tail docking is basically a surgical procedure where a vet removes part of the tail just a few days after the puppy is born. Most breeders do this between 3 to 5 days old because that's when a puppy's nervous system isn't fully developed yet. Supposedly, this makes the procedure less painful, though the topic of pain is still pretty controversial. There are 2 main ways to dock a tail. One is surgery using scissors, and the other is a method called banding, where a tight rubber band is tied around the tail to cut off circulation. After a few days, the tail falls off. Sounds kind of harsh, right? That's one reason tail docking is actually banned in several countries, but not in the United States. In fact, here in the United States, it's still widely practiced, especially for working dogs and show dogs. Historically, tail docking has some wild roots. Back in ancient Roman times, people believed docking a dog's tail could prevent rabies. Yes, really. Then, in 17th century Europe, there was even a tax on pet dogs, but working dogs were exempt. So farmers would dock their dogs' tails to show they were working dogs and not pets. That practice stuck around, and even today, many breeders continue it. Sometimes for tradition, sometimes for safety, and other times purely for aesthetics. So why dock an Australian Shepherd's tail now? Well, some say it helps avoid injuries, especially for working Aussies who herd cattle or sheep. Others believe it strengthens the dog's back or makes it faster and more agile. And of course, some people just prefer the look. Tail docking gives Aussies that classic sleek bobtail appearance. But here's the thing, tail docking isn't risk-free. Even if it's done early, it can cause complications. There's a chance of excessive bleeding, infection, or something called neuroma, which is basically a painful nerve lump at the docking site. Plus, tails aren't just for looks. They're a huge part of how dogs communicate. They wag to show excitement, hold it low when they're nervous, and raise it high when they're alert. So docking a tail can actually mess with how an Aussie expresses its feelings. Some people even say that docked dogs can become more aggressive or less social simply because they can't use their tail like other dogs can. Imagine not being able to smile or frown. It kind of takes away a part of who you are, right? Now, when it comes to the types of Aussie tails, there are a few variations you might see. There's the natural bobtail, which can be very short or just slightly stubby. Then you've got docked tails, which are surgically shortened. There's also the full-length tail, which tapers naturally and is covered in the same lush fur as the rest of the dog. Some Aussies have straight tails, others have kinked or slightly curved tails. In show standards, curved tails are sometimes seen as less desirable, which is another reason some breeders opt for docking. And here's something important. Not all bobtails are the same. Some are so short they look like the dog has no tail at all, while others might have a few inches. But generally speaking, a purebred Aussie's tail shouldn't be longer than 4 inches if they've got a bobtail or docked tail. If you're thinking of getting an Australian Shepherd and you're wondering whether to dock the tail or not, honestly, it depends on what you're planning to do with your dog. If you're getting a puppy as a family pet, there's really no need for tail docking. Let them keep their tail. But if you're adopting one who's already had the procedure done, that's okay too. It's just part of their story. One thing you should be careful about, though, is breeding. If you breed two natural bobtail Aussies together, there's a high risk that the puppies will have spinal defects or conditions like spina bifida. That's because the gene responsible for the bobtail when doubled up can be really dangerous, so responsible breeding is super important. And here's a fun fact. Aussies aren't the only breed with natural bobtails. There's the Brittany Spaniel, Catahoula Leopard Dog, Jack Russell Terrier, Croatian Sheepdog, and even the Polish Lowland Sheepdog, just to name a few. Taking care of a puppy after tail docking does require some attention. Keep the area clean, dry, and check daily for signs of swelling, redness, or infection. Most puppies heal within a week, but always follow your vet's instructions. If your pup had bandages, they should come off after 2 or 3 days. Cost-wise, docking is pretty cheap if done in the first week, usually between $10 and $20. But if you wait until the dog's older and the nerves are more developed, that's when it gets expensive, up to $500 with anesthesia and everything included. So to wrap it all up, Australian Shepherds can have tails, and some are even born without one due to a genetic mutation. Tail docking is a long-standing practice that's still common in the US, mainly for tradition, aesthetics, and working purposes. But it's controversial, and not everyone agrees with it. Whether or not to dock an Aussie's tail depends on your personal choice and how you plan to raise your dog. Whatever you choose, just make sure your Aussie, tail or no tail, gets lots of love, exercise, and treats. Because at the end of the day, they're one of the most loyal and energetic breeds you'll ever meet.